and welcome to Mishcon Women in Wealth Presents, a series of interviews and discussions where we talk about and unpick some of the topics and issues relevant to women in wealth. My name is Stephanie Pierce, and I am a managing associate in the tax and wealth planning team at Mishcon, based in our Singapore office. Today I am delighted to be joined by Sylvia Lim. Sylvia is the CEO of Rheingold Family Office, which is headquartered here in Singapore and has presences in Hong Kong and Shenzhen, China. Rheingold is a family office which serves high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals and families and provides bespoke solutions to grow and protect the wealth of its clients. Sylvia has over 28 years of experience in the financial services sector and has acted for many high net worth and ultra high net worth families throughout her career with several private international banks before founding Rheingold. Sylvia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So let's start with why we're having this conversation. Why do you think it's important to specifically consider the needs of female wealth holders and wealth creators?
Simply because women have become a major economic force to reckon with. To just give you some context, in a BCG report last year, it stated that now women control 1/3 of the world's wealth. And this wealth is estimated to grow by some 5 trillion each year. So based on that report itself, you can see, it is not a small sum. But obviously, it is also very important to, in the same report, it stated that women are very underserved. For whatever reasons, it could be that a lot of financial providers are making lots of assumptions about what women want, what kind of messaging they need, and thereby, at best, they're giving very superficial solutions. So as women ourselves, I think it is important for us to have conversations like today, whereby we can exchange ideas between industries, yours and mine, and also more importantly to reach out to our female clientele so that they can be better informed and they can know how we can support them better.
Absolutely. And of course, we are in Asia and we're speaking predominantly about Asian clients and their businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So anecdotally, have you seen a growth of female wealth in Asia over the course of your career?
Yes, absolutely. From the late 1990s, where I started my wealth management career until now, I have seen a marked increase in women wealth, not just in wealth creation, but also in them managing businesses. Traditionally, women come into wealth from inheritance, from their families or from their spouse. But in this part of the world, in Asia, it's not uncommon that women are entrepreneurs themselves and that they are in women leadership positions, so they do create their wealth as well. But I think most importantly, it's not that women are creating wealth or holding wealth. I think most importantly is that they are managing their wealth more independently these days.
And so do you see a difference in the style of management between wealth inheritors and wealth creators?
Personally, I don't think there is a certain kind of trend or marked differences between the two. I might be wrong, but I think a lot of times when it comes to managing wealth, it is very contingent on one's characteristics, one's objective, their background, their DNA in general. Not so much about whether they got their wealth or they created their wealth. I think that's secondary.
And so you have a great deal of experience in this sector, and no doubt you've come across numerous different types of clients. Have you seen a difference in the way that women manage their wealth compared to men?
I get that question quite a lot, and I've done some thinking. Do I really see a difference in terms of how women and men manage their wealth? And I hate to disappoint you if you think that there is, because honestly, I don't. Again, it is based on really the person's background, their characteristics, as I mentioned, their preferences, rather than gender. I have seen, my women clients who are great risk takers, and my male clients who are not risk takers, and vice versa. So I can't really point a finger to have an assumption, and I don't want to have any assumptions because as pointed out earlier in the BCG report, a lot of the reasons why women are underserved is because there could be because of all these stereotype beliefs about what women want and assumptions about how women behave and so forth. So I think it's critical for us as practitioners to just look at every individual as a unique individual and then cater rather than form assumptions about them before we offer the solutions.
Yes, because you mentioned risk. I think that's one of the big stereotypes that female investors are more risk averse. You've come across that, I assume?
So I don't see the marked trend. So I can debunk the beef just based on the sample size I have.
Yeah. And what about, there have apparently been studies that demonstrate that women are apparently more interested in ESG investments than men. Do you think that holds out?
Sure, I think that there are studies about women being more interested in ESG related kind of schemes and investments, and so the second generation as well. They are also another segment that have been often cited as being more interested and being more involved. I can understand the relation, but I tend to believe that COVID or this pandemic would be an inflection point. Why I say that is because COVID has actually really created a lot of awareness around ESG and sustainable investment themes. And I suspect that a lot of clients are getting involved. Gender aside, a lot of clients are seeing the significance of having their portfolios being allocated to these kind of investments, this kind of asset classes. And it's because clients now understand that besides making a profit, they can also invest and do good at the same time.
And have you seen a generational shift between the attitudes and approaches of and toward female holders of wealth, say 20 years ago compared to today?
There are two key trends I've observed. First, it would be women are coming or managing their wealth, their family business, their personal wealth or their family wealth at a much younger age. And that could be in tandem with the shift in the world as well. We are seeing a lot more youth leadership in organizations. The other aspect I've observed is the general increase in trust and confidence in female leadership in families. I've seen that traditionally, at least in Asia, a lot of families tend to maybe prefer the male gender compared to the female gender when it comes to taking leadership positions or leadership responsibilities in the family. But increasingly, we see that there are a lot of other factors of consideration, such as competency and also willingness, attitude of the individual, and willingness to step up to help the family or to manage the wealth. So these are given due considerations, and therefore women are also having a larger role to play in the family businesses as well as managing the family's wealth.
So then, do you think then that female millennials or even Gen Z are benefiting from this shift more than maybe their mothers would have this perception?
This is for sure, yes, this is for sure. They are given more opportunities. There are less assumptions about them, so they have a better head start in that respect. The rest is, of course, up to their competencies and their own individual capabilities and commitment and adaptability to manage.
So turning now to family offices, because Rheingold is a family office, when we refer to a family office, what does that mean?
Well, that's a very huge question. I'll try to summarize. The concept of family offices is more well established in centers like Europe and North America, and less so in Asia, but it's increasing at a very, very fast pace, no less. Just to give you some context, according to a Camden research, there are now about 7,300 family offices in the world, managing US 5.9 trillion of assets. The largest percentages are still residing in Europe and in North America. In Asia, we are seeing double-digit growth, very, very at the highest growth rate. So the concept of family can take many forms. At its most basic form, it could be just simply an admin office of professionals to help take care of investments and some administrative duties of the family. So typically a business family usually may start with having a team of investment professionals to help look after their business concerns as well as their family wealth. That's how most families would start. But as a family evolve and grow, the needs become more complex, and they might see that they need to look at more strategic planning that serve the family wealth. And that's where the concept of the family office comes in, because it's seen through the lens of a wealth manager. They can look at strategic planning in terms of succession planning, legacy planning, tax planning perhaps, that is more serving the needs or serving the objectives of the entire family.
So in the same way that a family might have obviously its own business structure for the family business, actually the family office is a separate entity or separate structure for their personal wealth, for their personal planning, really.
Absolutely. And increasingly these days you would see a lot of families are taking a special interest, for example, in family governance, in family constitutions. So these are what their professional teams internally managing their business may not be able to have the expertise to help them in such areas.
And do you find actually that the interest in family offices is kind of coming to a peak in Asia with the first to second gen, or is it a more second to third gen, or in your experience, what kind of generation of wealth seems to be the progenitors of the family office here?
Okay, depending on which part of Asia, because there is still some differentiation. Say in China, majority are still in the first, second generation of wealth. And in Southeast Asia, I would think it could be fourth generation or even the fifth generation, for some even the sixth generation. So there are differences even in Asia itself.
Sure. And so when we talk about family offices as well, some of our viewers in Singapore may have heard single family office or SFO, or multifamily office or MFO. What is the difference between those, and which one is Rheingold?
Okay, that's a great question. So a single family office are what you may have read from the media, the flux of a lot of family, a very established family coming into Singapore to set up their single family offices. To cite some examples, you might have read about Sergey Brin of Google, or Ray Dalio of Bridgewater, and most recently the Oppenheim family of the DBS Group. They are all coming from the West, but then they are setting up their single family office in Singapore. So as a rule of thumb, the single family office takes place when they want to manage assets under management, and typically the assets under management should be around $50 million minimally, to about 100 million at least, to make it economically viable, right? Because it requires a lot of heavy commitment in terms of cost and time. Of course, a single family office does have the full advantage of full autonomy and full privacy, and that's what's being valued the most of the time in single family office. There are some clients or some families, regardless of the assets under management that they have or they hold, they may still prefer to tap into multi-family offices like ours, like Rheingold. So Rheingold is a multi-family office whereby we are licensed multi-family office in Singapore, licensed by the Monetary Authority of Singapore, and we take care of multiple families, as the name suggests. So the advantage is we are still an independent advisor, and we can provide that full array of services that a family office is. But to the client, it just means it's less onerous in terms of admin, in terms of investment. They can possibly enjoy economies of scale. And for some instances, the client value the fact that they could also have the opportunity to exchange ideas amongst the families or between some of the families, or in some instances they could co-invest into certain investments together, where if their interests and their objectives are aligned. So there are a lot of all these kind of side benefits that's happening in the multifamily office space.
Do you find families collaborating like that? Does that happen quite a lot in practice?
It does from time to time, but I must emphasize that as a multifamily office, we don't start from that premise. Each individual client that comes to us, we don't commingle their assets, we don't commingle our conversations. We're beholden to each client as if we serve the client like a single family office, and that's very important in the wealth management arena. Of course, privacy is key.
And how can a family office help female clients?
I think we can really do a lot to help female clients, just from the context that female, they have to fulfill multiple roles. I'm a female myself, and maybe you share that with that thought with me as well, that we usually have to perform multiple roles. So it helps that to know that there is this level of service that they can access, a family office whereby to help them to look through their lens, to manage all their investments out there, and also to curate bespoke services that is relevant to the female client. So of course the kind of services would range dependent on what the client needs. Say for instance, a younger female client who is second gen coming into business, they may need mentorship, they may need tools and ideas or education around financial planning or portfolio management. These are all things that a family office can provide in addition to their private bankers, because the family office can come in and give them an independent view of what their bankers first provide. So that's one thing. The other thing is for the more elderly female client, what I can think of is they might be looking at items like succession planning, or they want to give in a more impactful or meaningful way, and they want to do certain charitable foundations, or they want to give towards certain kind of causes. So they need to partner with somebody to help them coordinate. That could also be a possibility. Or simply, it could be just a female client who has got multiple things around, and they need to organize and reconsolidate and make it viable for themselves in their later years. Those are items that a family office can come and help them.
I suppose then it's a way, as you say, to consolidate advice and approach in what can otherwise be quite a noisy space. You can have lawyers, accountants, bankers, all sorts of different advisors kind of telling you different things, and maybe the role of the family office is to be that consolidatory point that can do the liaison for you, I suppose.
Yes, absolutely. So you can say that family office can be like a concierge service of sort, to help interface with the lawyers, the accountants, and whatever, the tax planners, the bankers. So we are a one-stop shop, and we look to provide the service from the angle of what the client needs.
And so if a woman wants to set up a family office, or she wants to approach a multifamily office, what should she do? What should she have in mind?
Okay, that's a very big question, but I think the answer to this is not just pertaining to the female clientele, but to all clients in general looking to set up family office. Of course, first thing first, they have to consider what's the family office going to be used for, what's the objectives that they want, because setting up a family office requires very heavy commitment, as I've mentioned earlier. So it is important that they mapped out and they know really what they want to achieve. Then the next most important thing I feel that is happening right now would be landing their assets in the right jurisdiction. And by that, I'm saying, I'm pointing out to the fact that the world is the financial world is really a very different place from when I started my career. Offshore tax havens, for example, is almost not in existence anymore. And in the last 10 years, or within the last 10 years, we have seen global governance from the likes of FATCA, common reporting standards, automatic exchange of information. All these has come into play, and more so will be coming into play. I think more so, especially with technology is allowing that as well, and there will be more multilateral agreements. So it's very important for the end customer, the end individual, to reassess all their structures to make that it still continues to make sense. Lending into the right jurisdiction is very key, because most of my customers, they want to make sure that they don't invite unnecessary scrutiny. They want to, have their wealth provide them with the kind of happiness that they deserve, the kind of peace, which is what wealth ultimately should do, not give the client any burden, but give them the freedom as well as the happiness that they or their family deserve. So other than looking at the jurisdiction, and it doesn't have to be the jurisdiction that is near to the client's home ground, if you know what I mean. Just like the examples I've mentioned earlier, all those names, we have seen that they just moved across the globe rather than to just choose something that is next door to where they live. So that's also the consideration. The other thing obviously would be to look at whether that jurisdiction offers access to opportunities, if that's what the client is after, the economic and political stability, the rule of law, the tax regimes, access to professional teams and infrastructure is always very important, the cost as well for some family office, the incentives and the schemes. So when Ryan Go as a multifamily office, when we first studied all these factors and we wanted to set up our family office, we considered various jurisdictions, and we really feel that Singapore tick a lot of the check boxes, if not all the check boxes, and that's why we have put our multifamily office here in Singapore. And for clients out there who are interested in Asia and who would like to set up a family office in Asia, they can come to speak to someone like us, like a multifamily office or any of the multifamily offices in Singapore.
So is it right to say that Singapore is kind of the leading jurisdiction for family offices in Asia at the moment?
I would say that, as you would probably know, the two main financial centers in Asia is Singapore and also Hong Kong. And Hong Kong is also promoting the fund management business as much as Singapore is. So each of the jurisdiction has its advantages and its competencies, and it's very different. Some are very similar. So again, to the client, we will talk to clients and see which jurisdiction best suit them.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Sylvia. I've learned a lot about family offices today. It was a real pleasure talking to you.
It's my pleasure.
So thank you for joining us in this session of Women in Wealth Presents, and we'll see you next time.